welcome to tonight's class. If you're tuning in, thanks so much for being here, and let me know if you're tuning in live with me. Hello, Jan. I'm so glad to have you here. I started a little bit early because I had to get everything just right technically for tonight's class. Tonight we're going to be painting a lamb, and this is a really fun. I really enjoyed doing this for our class, so I hope that you have fun doing it too. I had a lot of fun, and mine will be a little bit bigger than this tonight. But if you're tuning in for the first time, make sure that you say hello in the comments below and tell me where you're tuning in from. So I'm going to throw up our little lamb up on the screen because it might be, for some of you who are just tuning in and you're new, you might need to have this so you can sketch it. So, and for those who are in the Facebook group tonight, there is a new link in there for tonight's live stream. If you're new here, my name is Paige, and I'm the Chief Pixel Pusher over at Gumption and the Paintbrusher here at PaigeWeber.net, and we like to do some watercolor painting twice a month. So this is my free YouTube class that I do once a month, and then I have a private class as well, and you can learn about that at PaigeWeber.net under classes if you would like to join. All right, let me see. What do we need to cover for tonight? So again, we are painting a lamb, and that's going to be really fun. Usually our classes last about an hour. We'll see how fast this one goes tonight. What you're going to need tonight, sorry, I'm reading here. As you can see at the bottom of the screen, we're going to be using some paper towels. You might need a hair dryer, some washi tape. You're actually not going to need a round object tonight, but you might need to take a screenshot of our nice little lamb here so you can draw along, and your watercolors of choice. Now, my students get a worksheet that tell them what colors that we're using, so I'm going to throw that up on the screen. I'm more organized than usual, I think, for this class. If my mouse will, of course, my mouse is acting up. Come on, computer. I say that. I kind of jinxed myself, I think. We're just going to move this really quick. Here we go. So the colors used in tonight's class are raw umber, alizarin crimson, ultramarine blue, moss green. You can also mix your own green, and Payne's gray or sodalite. You can use a dark color. We're just going to be darkening that green color, and a quinacridone coral or an opera, whatever kind of pink color that you like. You can also just use alizarin crimson if that is what you have. If you have any questions during any of this, please throw them in chat, and I will try to answer them as I can. And if you want to learn more about me and all of the class stuff, you can go to PaigeWeber.net. And yes, and also whenever I am drying with a hairdryer, I will mute myself. So just know that that might happen here. Okay, so we have another person who left a comment. All right. Jean, it's nice to have you here with us tonight. I'm glad that you're on the live stream with us too. This is wonderful. Okay, so we will get started painting. Now, if you're new to the live stream, I usually sketch this out beforehand so we can just do some painting. That's why, again, I recommend doing a screenshot if you're doing this live or doing it later, or by joining our club, you can get the sketch in our workbook here. So I'm going to remove our little lamb for a moment, and I'm going to switch camera views so we can kind of get started. Okay, so you can see my little sketch here. I'm using washi tape to create a border for this. So we have a nice clean border like we do on our little guy here. And we'll just move our screen here. We will be looking at our little lamb here on the screen again, because I really want to show you why this is a good image to use, because it allows us to do some have some light shining through, and we can have that light by not painting in these areas. So we're not using masking fluid, but we are not painting in certain areas for the light. So I'm just going to add him to our stage here. Whoops. There we go. And you can see how we have this really bright white. And by not painting in these areas, we can allow that to shine through. Okay. All right. So I'm going to remove him and we will get started. So we're going to need to mix up some of our colors. And you know what? I knew I was going to forget something. I forgot water. So I'm just going to improvise. There's always something that you forget. Okay, so I'm going to improvise here. And what kind of brushes are we going to use tonight? Well, I'm going to be using a really small kind of round brush, but you see this brush has a nice, let's see if it can focus there. Focus. Has a nice point on it. And this is a really great brush as well. This is just a larger version. This is a silver black velvet brush. But when you have a point like this, you can go in and out and create some of these textures here because we have that nice point there. I'll also be using a round brush. This is a number 6 Utrecht brush that is rounded. It just doesn't have that same point on it. Okay. So I'm going to mix up some raw umber. And raw umber is, I really like, let's see, where is it? This is my raw umber. It's a nice kind of brown color. It's warm and it mixes great with purple. I really like using that combination, hence why we used it for this little painting. I'm just mixing up some raw umber here. We will mix a purple as well, but this is just a nice warm color. Scoot this over a little bit so you can see my palette a little bit better. And next we are going to create a cool color. So we're going to create a purple, and today you are welcome to use your convenience color purples, but I am going to use alizarin crimson, and I'm going to mix it with ultramarine blue to create a nice purple. This enables me, actually I'm going to do it in a bigger slot here. This also enables me to have some granulation because ultramarine blue does a nice job of doing some granulation. So alizarin crimson, a little bit of water here, and then I'm going to put in my ultramarine blue. And mixing this creates a really nice purple. Now, what I recommend for folks, especially if you're learning how to watercolor paint, is to test your watercolors on your paper, not on your painting first, so you can see how dark it is. Oftentimes I see students, they just create paint that is too dark, and it's hard to step away from that sometimes. So definitely test it. I'm creating adding a little more blue. This creates a little cooler purple. You can use the color that you like out of that mixture. We'll also put a little bit of this raw umber there so you can see what it looks like too. And Then I'm going to use a pre-made moss green color. Let's see. Now you can mix your own green if you would like, out of yellow and ultramarine blue. This creates kind of a nice sunny green here. And then what I'll also do is take the same color and add a little darker color to it. You could add ultramarine blue to that mixture. You could add sodalite to it. It's just going to make it darker, and you can see the difference there. We have kind of a darker green here. Sodalite is essentially the same kind of color that we have as Payne's Gray. So I can test that here. We can kind of see what that looks like on the paper. And here is our other green there. The other color that we might want to try is quinacridone coral. This is a little bit different color than our alizarin crimson. Now you can use any pink that you want, but I just wanted to test out that quin coral color. It's really pretty if you have quin rose. I know some of my students have quin rose. That is a good option too. So we have our colors mixed up. I'm going to get a little bit more water and just step away. So as you're mixing colors, I will be right back to get started painting. You know, we do the best when we're doing these live streams, but I knew there was something I was forgetting, and it's the most important part. Okay, so what I'm going to do, we're going to work wet on dry. We're going to lighten our colors and really make sure that they're soft. And I'm going to use my handy dandy round brush to start this. Now, if I can add our image in here really quickly. Let's see. I'm going to try to switch this up a little bit. Yeah, this may not. Sorry, guys. Technical stuff. Okay. You can see our image that is on the screen there, and we have some really soft colors in this face of this little lamb. So we're going to have some we're going to start with some soft colors, and then while it's wet, we can add some more colors in there, but we are not working wet and wet initially. So we'll pull, come on, computer. We're going to pull him out of there, sorry. And I'm going to start with my raw umber first and just kind of add this in to shape around the mouth, because he has some warm stuff happening underneath his chin and kind of along the side of the face. But you can see I'm not going to go all the way to the edge because I'm going to reserve this white for the lights. And you can go over the eye if you want to. And just kind of This area is pretty cool, so I might just do some hints here around the face. This helps you kind of shape the shadows too by going in this way. Just along the side of the head here and around the mouth. And you can extend this kind of out to the fur. You can also leave, you can kind of be sketchy with this if you want to. I'll bring up our example as well. Maybe if this, well, that's probably not going to work, but we'll put it there. So that might help you. Just kind of sketch this in. I got a little green on here, dragging it through my paint. These live streams, they're keeping it real. So we've added a layer of warmth, and you can kind of sketch it in there. And this is really our base layer. We're going to be doing a little bit of layering. I might do a little over on this side too. Just remember, we're going to be reserving some of this lighter area here. Okay. Then we can go in with some of our purple color. You may need to diffuse it a little bit. I'm just going to put some in this other well so I can kind of gauge how dark that is. And then you can start defining these areas on the side. Now, if it's too dark, of course, we can add a little bit of water if you want to diffuse it some. And don't forget, we have some grass and stuff here. Kind of blend it in. Maybe add some more water to soften that. Might need to kind of go a little closer to the edge, but not all the way. You can also dab in a little of that raw umber if you want to create a little variation in color, warming it up a little. In any areas that you want to pull water out of or lighten, you can take your brush, tap it on your paper towel, and do a little bit of lifting. And you can also do this in some additional areas. Here we have this leg here. We have a little bit darker area here. So we can add our purple in. You can soften this by adding a little bit of water. We aren't, again, going to go to this edge because we want to reserve that for some lights where the light is hitting. I think that's what's kind of magical about this image here, is that we can really use the white of the paper and light to our advantage to really create a dynamic little painting. Again, you know, you're kind of tapping in here. We've got some edges where grass is going to be. Just adding some water to soften it in some areas. Now you can always, if it's not dark enough, what you can do is you can always go into your pigment and tap it in where you want it to be a little bit darker, and it's going to create a nice little area there. So I'm just going to do a little bit more up under here. Remember the adage, warm light, cool shadows, cool light, warm shadows. I always kind of dribble a little bit here. Pick up some of that. We also have some cool area here. So what I need to do is pull out a little bit of ultramarine blue. I'm just going to put it here, a little bit of it here. Really loosen up because we have this nice area in this picture where it's really kind of this blue here. And that feels very dark, but we can soften that with our brush a little bit by kind of spreading it out. Maybe, you might feel like it needs to be darker. We are going to go in with a little bit of our purple there too, but I wanted to hit this with a bit of this blue here. Again, in some of these areas, we can go in with a little bit of our purple mixture. Like this goes a little higher. We can kind of give some shadow here, kind of around. Got some nice shadow along this side. Now you're not going to paint necessarily over the eyes here with this color. We're kind of just shaping our face. Here, we're going to go in with our pink here in a moment, once this is kind of dry. And I've kind of been avoiding the mouth area because we're going to go in with pink there. Right now, it looks a little alien, and that is okay. You might even want to go in the ear a little bit here and there, just at the tops, if you have room, depending on how big you've painted your little sweetheart here. And if you feel like you need to add any colors anywhere else, you can kind of finesse this. Now mine is drying pretty quickly. I'm going to use some of my pink. I'm actually going to test it here on the side of my paper. Like that's pretty pink. I really want it to be pretty subtle. So I might add a little bit of water to the side of this just to get a little touch of it. And because my ears haven't started working in that area, well, actually I still have wet paint here, so forget that. We're gonna go over the eyes here. And I can paint this, I can even paint it over the eyeball because these little guys have pink around their eyes. You can go darker than that if you want to, but it's good to test it lightly before we commit. And now the area for me is dry in the ear, so I can also do this in this inner ear area. And it's pretty pink within that image because light is shining through, and this is thin skin, so you can make that kind of vibrant if you want to. Use your brush to kind of paint it in here. Tap in a little pigment. Now we're going to do the same thing around the mouth. You just want to make sure that your areas around the mouth are dry in the nose. So we can, I'm going to bring my example here so you can see this example. So we can do a little bit around the mouth. Now this area underneath this bottom lip is a light color. So that's a good reminder. We're going to kind of do it around the mouth. It's kind of like a T a little bit around the nose. Kind of just soften that there. Zoom in a little bit so you can see. And I kind of wonder if they didn't base Gremlins on a little lamb a little bit. Tell me what you think about that. Some of these characteristics that are kind of unusual. Just going to tap a little extra pigment here. We'll see how that kind of dries. But for the time being, we can let this dry and we can consider our grass here. We will hit these pink areas again, but we just need them to dry a little bit. So let's move to our grass. Because we have mixed up our paint, this should be a pretty good, easy paint in. We're going to do this painting wet on dry. So I'm going to start with my light mossy green color, yellow green color first. And notice I'm using this pointy brush, and you can use that point to your advantage to create kind of this, draw in some wispy grassy area here. And if this is dry, you can paint right into that. I'm going to try to move kind of fast here. We're moving the bead. We're adding more from our pigment pile. Zoom out a little bit so you can see this a little bit better. Now I'm running out of paint, so I should have mixed a little bit more paint, but I'm going to make it here. You can do some wisps here. And then I'm going to go in with my dark green and just start tapping in. You might have to mix up your paint a little bit if it dried. Now it looks like I need a little bit darker pigment, so I will probably dip in and get some darker pigment for myself. But I'm just kind of splashing, wisping in some of this color. I'm going to hit my soda light and I can just tap that in directly from the pigment to create some kind of depth here. And some darkness. Again, you can use it to create some wisps. But it's very interesting how this kind of helps things start kind of come together a little bit. And I don't have a ton of water actually down here, because I am kind of just dipping into that pigment now, utilizing what is here. just creating some of these wispy grasses. Because what we do here by putting this darker color in the bottom here is we're also creating light in the grass. You know, and if you wanted to pull out even some more lights, I think you could just take your brush, maybe, and pull out some of the color with a dry brush. It doesn't really showing very well here on the screen, but you could do that too. You could also wait until this is dry to do that. So I like the direction this is going. I don't want to overwork this too much, so I'm going to let this dry the way it is. We have some nice hints of grass here. And while this is drying, I'm not going to hit this. I'm not going to hit the background until this is dry. So we can reevaluate when you're ready the pink and some of the details in our little lamb. So I'm taking my little brush and I can use this to create some details with our little lamb, like putting in our eyes and maybe this little line at the nose, the nostrils, and maybe the line at the mouth. So we can do that while this is drying below. So I can take what I've used for the eyes is our dark color, which is this purple color. And hopefully this will be dark enough. I need to mix it up a little because in our palette here, it separates. You might have to do a couple layers of this or add some more pigment, but you can just paint in. Let's zoom in a little bit. This kind of helps me see too. And start painting in the eye here. And we don't really have to go into a lot of detail here. You can just leave a light, an area that's unpainted that could be that little light in the eye. It looks like I got a little outside the line here, so I can lift a little bit. I, again, might have to apply this a couple of times, but I'll just do the same on the other side. You can always tap in a little extra pigment too while there's still wet there. So there you go. Got some darkness there. And see how that, you can leave that there. So while that is drying, I can go into my pink color and add some more detailing if I want around the nostrils. So I can take this a little bit, another layer of this Quin coral, or if you have an opera. Now that looks really dark, but it should lighten up there. Just to create a little bit of depth and shape here. We can also go along the mouth, and maybe you could make that little line a little darker. And then, of course, if you want to create some more pink in the ears, you can also kind of visit that right now while our eyes and things are drying. Maybe we create some little veins in here. You don't have to paint the whole thing, but you can, clean up lines if you want to. darken some areas. You can also do this around the eye once this dries a little bit. You do not have to, especially if you're working small, you may not be so inclined, but because I have this nice little brush, it's got a nice little point, so I can use it almost like you would a little pencil. So we're really kind of having a little fun, adding a little definition. This is dry around the nose, so I might add a little bit of shadow underneath his or within his nostrils, his or her nostrils, and I can do that again with this small brush. And you could also use this on the mouth if you wanted to. I know we went over it with our pink, but this is dry for me, so I can create the little mouth there. Also, one thing that we didn't talk about is the little shadow that's on the chin. So I put a little bit of this raw umber on the chin because technically it would be a little bit in shadow. You could even do little hairs if you want, little wisps out. And maybe, you know, something along the curve here. Well, I just dumped a big droplet there. Okay, so for now, we can move on to our background if our grass is dry, and it feels like my grass is dry. This will help make your little lamb come to life. Again, you're going to use this brush. And what we will do is we can actually work wet into wet for this particular experiment, or you can work wet onto dry. So you can take your brush. I'm just going to quickly move some, it's got some green in there, so it could be interesting here. But you can use this brush and kind of wisp into the fur without covering the white here, because we're going to drop in some of our purple that we've made, but we're also going to use some of that raw umber. And so I'm just painting with water right now to, you know, the water and paint go where the water is. And from the angle that I'm at, I can see where my water is. Now, because I'm in Idaho, it always seems to dry super fast, so I kind of keep adding water to some of these areas, but wisp in. Don't cover the light areas here. Be careful as you go over the top of the ear. We're just painting with water, and then we're going to drop in some paints. We're using the point of our brush to create some texture. And now I think I've got this whole thing wet. You may want to tilt it on its side to make sure there isn't an area that dried too much. And then I'm going to start dropping in color. And we're going to drop in some of this purple color. And just be careful around this edge here because we haven't used masking fluid. What this does by having this dark color by these areas that are left white, it just makes them that much darker feeling. So I might put some here in the corner. It looks like it dried a little bit, but that's okay. And just tap in some color. We're creating some texture. And of course, my paper's kind of warping, so it's moving some of this pigment a little bit. You can tap in. It's amazing what watercolor can do, and a little bit of granulation can do. So I'm also going to tap in some of my raw umber here. And I might need to get some pigment out of my palette and just drop it in some places here. Now I kind of like leaving some light areas too. Not everything has to be filled in. You can move your paper around to move some of that pigment around. I definitely want to have a color that can help define this top of the head where there is light on top of the head. So we're going to kind of move around the ear. But it really kind of helps bring this together, and you can also then start, if you need to create some details in there, you can. So we are using this wet and wet technique here to our advantage. Now I've got a lot of water. It's all pooling there. We'll see kind of what happens here. You can always lift color out if you need to, or kind of spread it. And we can let that dry. I'm going to let that dry. It's got quite a bit of water happening with our little lamb there. Now you could go in, and I probably will do this. We have a little time. I can add some details if I want to. If you really like loose watercolor, you might feel like you're done and you don't have anything more to add, and that's okay. I might just add a little bit more of a shadow underneath here. We've got this hair that's kind of going out. You can just add a few more details by using these subtle colors and layering them on top of each other. And this is kind of the sweet spot of doing these little portraits in this way. Maybe Just whittling in some details here. And you can see by working that wet into wet, we have some really nice granulation that's happening here, a softening of the background. And you can kind of just play with your warm and your cool colors, that being the warm is our raw umber, the cool is our purple color. I might want to try to clean up some lines here. So I'm going to hit this with my hair dryer because I really want to pull the tape. I think a lot of times tape can kind of skew the coloring a little bit. So I'm going to mute myself really quickly as you continue to work. And we will come back here and pull a little bit of tape. Okay, so if we'll pull this tape and really see what this looks like. We'll see how even I laid it down. The best part, I feel like, of any painting is pulling the tape. You see that really nice clean line that we get. I do like using washi tape. For years I used painter's tape. And I like washi tape because most of the time it doesn't pick up your paper, so it doesn't ruin it. And you can get it in different widths. All right, so there is our little sweet lamb. We're hoping that we've come in like a lion. We're hoping to go out like a lamb here at the end of March. I would really like it to be next week, but you know, that might be a little too soon, but I would take it. So I'm going to switch cameras here. I would like to thank you for being part of this class. If you have questions, please throw them in chat. And let's switch our camera here really quick. All right. Thank you for joining. Throw those questions in chat and let's see what questions arose, or tell me what you liked about this class. Thanks, Jan. Jean, I'm sorry, we have a Jan and a Jean both in class tonight. Thanks, Jean. That's really nice. I bet yours is really beautiful too. Please share it in our Facebook group with a group if you feel comfortable doing so. If you are just tuning in and this is the first time that you have been part of this class, you can learn more about this class over at pageweber.net. And we have a private class once a month, and then we have this YouTube class, and we have a whole portal full of classes that we have done together that you can access there too. And students get worksheets. And it's really fun when we get together because we do our live class. We have students from across the US that tune in. All right. Do we have any questions tonight? Trying to think of what else we might want to cover before I let you guys go. Yeah, I think we did pretty good. We did our class within 55 minutes, so we're doing pretty good. I will throw this class. It is going to be up in our private Facebook group, so you should be able to access it right away. And then I think tomorrow it'll be up in our portal, so you can use it right away. All right. Well, thank you, Jan and Jean, for tuning in live tonight. Again, share those paintings if you want to in our group. Thanks for being here. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. I'd be happy to answer them. I hope you have a lovely evening. And, oh, we have a question here. Seems like your colors look choppy. Have to probably see. It could be maybe because part of your painting has dried already, and it dried and then it isn't blending very well. Maybe you have some granulation. I'm not sure. You'll have to definitely share it so I can kind of help you assess what's going on. May not have been enough water. Also, sometimes you need a bigger brush for certain things, and so you might need a bigger brush. This is a pretty good size painting for what we're doing, so you might need something that, this is a jumbo round black velvet. This is a good mop for water, or you could use something that's even a little bit bigger. It's flat brush. You were using a small brush. So that might be the key next time. I definitely would practice it and see. Mine was drying really fast, so I probably didn't even have a big enough brush for the area that I was trying to paint. So it just dries so fast sometimes that, yeah, definitely moving to a little bit bigger brush, depending on how big your painting is. That's why there is a brush that I really liked that we used in our last private class that is a 1-inch. This is a nice, it's a little brush, but it's a nice, good size brush. It's a 1-inch flat brush by Princeton Neptune. Maybe you can read that. Not only is it kind of pretty, but it does a really nice job of allowing us to put in quite a bit of water. So you might want something like this. And then for the grass, you go in with a pointy brush to kind of fill in those little gaps. So that could be it. There's just so many things that you're trying to control at the same time. All right. Does anybody else have any other questions while we're here? Well, maybe not, but I think you can definitely throw those in the comments after tonight's live stream, and you can also do that in the group. So feel free to reach out and give me a shout. All right, guys. Well, I'm going to let you go because it is that time, and I appreciate you being here. And I will see you. I'll see my class members in a couple weeks. We have a private class. I'll be putting that out for you, I think, this weekend, so you can have that workbook in advance. And yeah, if you want, subscribe to the channel if you want to know when we have some live streams happening. Thank you. Thank you, Jean. So I will see you guys next time, and have a great rest of your week. Have a great weekend.